Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. My name is Sean, and I'm delighted to join us for today's ESPC community webinar. This webinar is part of Microsoft Fabric Week, proudly sponsored by Actares. Today I'm joined by Simon Georgesberg, who will present Inside Look, real-world experiences with Fabric Copilot. We love hearing your guys have to say, so remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar. Our handle is @ESPC_community and our hashtag is #ESPC25. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which is updated the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access on Video Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking the Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, 6 Steps to Successful AI Empowerment in Power Platform, with Jonas Waters and Lothar van Diesen. This webinar will take place Wednesday, June 4th at 3 p.m. CEST. For more information on this webinar, please check out www.sharepointeurope.com/register for webinars. Looking to level up your Microsoft Fabric skills? Then don't miss out on FabCon Europe, the European Microsoft Fabric Community Conference happening from 15th to 18th of September in Vienna. You'll experience 3 incredible keynotes, 10 full-day tutorials, and 130 plus sessions led by Microsoft experts, MVPs, and community leaders, all focused on data engineering, real-time analytics, Power BI, governance, and more. There's also hands-on workshops, great networking, and awesome evening socials. And here's the best part. You can save €150 today. Use code FABRICWEEK150 when booking your ticket. Scan the QR code today. Want to go deep dive into Microsoft Fabric tools with hands-on learning? We've just launched the FabCon Europe tutorials packed with practical sessions on Power BI, Microsoft Purview, SQL, data warehousing, Fabric data agents, and more. Learn directly from Microsoft and community experts and walk away with real-world skills you can apply immediately. And don't forget, you can save €150 right now and use code FABRICWEEK150 to book your tickets. After the webinar, we'll have a questions and answer session. Type any questions you might have into the questions box. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to today's webinar presenter, Simon. Hello, Simon. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Looking forward to sharing a bit about the work we've been doing with Fabric and Copilot. So I'm going to start sharing and let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So thank you everyone for joining. For the next hour, I will entertain you guys with both the successes, but also the failures we had in trying out Fabric and trying out Copilot before it was GA and everything we've done until then. So first things first, who am I? So I'm Simon Georgesberg. I'm the Business Intelligence Manager here at Wolters Kluwer Tax and Accounting, and I work within global sales operations. Our function is more commonly known as RevOps, driving everything through sales, finance, marketing, and product analytics. And in general, our overall responsibility is assisting our teams in making data-driven decisions through modern BI practices. As you might have heard, I'm based in Gothenburg, Sweden, based on my accent. And I've been a geek for my entire life, and I've been working with data for over half a decade now. Today, I'm going to share, as previously mentioned, our journey with Microsoft Fabric, with a specific focus on Copilot and how it's been transforming the work we are doing across every workload, from data ingestion to business intelligence and everything in between. The team and I have been one of the lucky few who were able to play around with Copilot in Power BI and a bunch of other Fabric functionalities before they became GA. But to set the stage, let me first give you a brief overview of Wolters Kluwer and who we are. So Wolters Kluwer is a global provider of expert solutions and software for professionals in healthcare, tax, accounting, law, risk, compliance, and a bunch of others. So we're a global SaaS company operating out of over 40 countries, serving 180. We have more than 21,000 employees worldwide, and we serve 93% of the Fortune 500 companies. Our tagline is "When you have to be right," and it reflects our commitment to precision, reliability, and impact. We strive to help professionals make decisions that matter most, whether it's saving lives and health or managing financial risk and tax. As you'll see throughout this presentation, the same level of precision is what we demand from our data strategy, which is also why we decided to go with Microsoft Fabric. At Wolters Kluwer, our technology choices really do reflect our values. So we have a couple of internal values that we always work with. And it's aim high and deliver. We pursue big outcomes with accountability. Focus on customer success. Everything we do must bring value to us internally and our customers. Make it better. We foster innovation and continuous improvement. And my personal favorite, win as a team. It might sound really simple, but in practice, this is one of the most powerful ideas driving our transformation. So as previously mentioned, I'm based in Sweden, but I lead a business intelligence team that spans across multiple regions. So I have a handful of analysts in Europe, a couple in Asia Pacific, a couple in North America. Some of them are on this call right now listening in, and they can attest to how critical collaboration is in our day-to-day work. Data is no longer just a technical asset, it's a strategic one. And aligning our data strategies across time zones, cultures, and business units require more than just tools. It requires shared goals, open communication, and mutual trust. Whether we're building a unified dashboard for sales leaders or troubleshooting a pipeline at midnight, it's our team's first mindset that keeps us moving forward. Microsoft Fabric, and especially Copilot, has helped strengthen this dynamic. It let us work in the same data environment, regardless of geography. It reduces friction, promotes reuse, and enables real-time collaboration on dashboards, notebooks, and workflows. In short, we win together because we can build together. And that's the heart of everything we're doing in Fabric and Copilot. Now that I've gone through that stuff, let's actually talk about the challenges we had and what we have actually done. So like many companies, we had areas of improvement we needed to work on. And our data strategy faced 4 key components. Each one compounding the other and slowing down our ability to deliver insight at scale. So these 4 things, data silos, complex data management, inefficient data processing, and delayed insight and decision making, weren't isolated problems. It was systematic issues that affected our workflows, our trust in data, and ultimately business outcomes. So let me briefly introduce them, and then we'll actually go a bit more into details into the actual issues we had and how they impacted us and our everyday life. So data silos, different teams and departments stored and managed their data independently, often in disconnected systems. Sales can work in a CRM tool such as Salesforce, whilst we all know that finance loves their spreadsheets and Excel, and whilst product also can use Azure as an example to store usage data. Inevitably, we had a lot of different fragmentations that made it hard to get unified views of performance, and it created alignment issues around KPIs, but also decision making. Secondly, we had complex data management. Managing data across geographies, business units, and compliance boundaries added a lot of overhead. Questions like where did you get this data from, or who owns this data set, weren't always that easy to answer. Governance was inconsistent and often manual, and we needed something that would give us more control with less manual handling on it. We also had inefficient data processing, so much of our time was spent wrangling data instead of manually cleaning it, transforming it, and validating it before we could even begin the analysis. Pipelines were fragile, updates were slow, and a lot of talent was consumed by low-value repetitive work. Instead of having time to focus on the fun stuff, building the really impactful and insightful dashboards, we had to do the groundwork, which isn't always that great. Often necessary, but not that fun. All of these things inevitably lead to delayed insights and decision making. So with data stuck in silos, complex processes, and slow pipelines, it naturally took longer to get answers. This delay impacted our agility, responsiveness, and in some cases, our ability to act on opportunities or risks in real time. But let's actually deep dive into all of these issues and the real impact they had on us. So data silos is one of the biggest historical challenges we faced. Over time, different departments and business units developed their own systems, tools, and even reporting processes. Sales had one CRM, finance used another database, and operations had separate tools for performance tracking. The result was a fragmented insight. KPI as simple as monthly customer retention could vary depending on which team reported it. We could spend hours reconciling numbers, debating definitions, and trying to align on the single source of truth instead of actually acting on the data. These silos didn't just slow us down, they eroded trust. When teams can't agree on the data, it undermines confidence in the decision-making. It also makes enterprise-wide visibility virtually impossible. We realized we needed a unified platform, one that would centralize data access without creating bottlenecks. Another major challenge was inefficient data processing. What did this actually mean? So we're a global company, a lot of data, a lot of different divisions, as mentioned, working for tax personally, and that means a lot of numbers and a lot of ones and zeros to keep track of. All of this caused our data pipelines to be quite heavy. So analysts were spending a significant portion of the time preparing and cleaning data, chasing down CSVs, merging spreadsheets, correcting formatting errors, and rerunning scripts, things that none of us really want to do, but when we didn't have an automated solution, we had to. Fragile workflows were way too common. A broken link in a pipeline could result in a downstream report failing without alerting the right people. This added stress on the analytical teams, who often had to play the role of data firefighters instead of insight generators. Nowadays, we almost need to be business insight partners instead of just analysts, and this really messed it up for us. A simple metric update could even take time, slowing down business responsiveness and delaying time-sensitive decisions. When speed is essential, inefficiency is a big risk. We wanted to shift our analyst focus from data wrangling to value creation. We needed automation, intelligence, and stability. And as mentioned, we needed to become insight partners and not just analysts anymore. Third, we faced complex data management issues. So as we deal with regulatory sensitive data like tax, legal, and healthcare, managing data securely and responsibly is a non-negotiable. But the complexity kept growing. We had limited transparency into data lineage. How did it move from systems and transform? Reusability of datasets was also low, which led to duplication of effort and inconsistent outputs. The risk of non-compliance increased as governance became harder to enforce across fragmented systems. Without a unified metadata model and strong governance tools, managing data to scale became risky and inefficient. These challenges weren't about volume. They were rather about control, trust, and traceability. And we needed a modern platform that baked those capabilities in by design. All of this inevitably, data silos, inefficient data processing, and complex management converges into a single critical impact: delayed insights and decision-making. When it takes too long to get to the right data, or when the data you do get can't be trusted, decision-making suffers. And in today's environment, that delay has real consequences. Missed revenue opportunities, compliance risks, or operational inefficiencies. These aren't new challenges, but their impact has grown exponentially as our data volumes and business expectations have increased. We realized that solving them required a fundamental shift. Not just better looking tools, but a modern, intelligent end-to-end data platform. And that is what led us to Microsoft Fabric and the transformative role Copilot now plays in our everyday workflow. So now that we've seen the problems we were facing, data silos, complex management, inefficiency, bad processes, let me show you what the solution actually looked like in progress. So as you see, I'm no UX specialist at all, but this is my very poor attempt at explaining our current architecture within Microsoft Fabric. It brings together the major components of the modern data platform under one unified environment. So let me walk you through the layers and explain how we utilize Copilot to enhance the different parts of it. We start with the data factory and Gen 2 data flows, as you see on the left. It handles ingestion from various sources, as mentioned, everything from CRMs to our lovely finance departments, manual spreadsheets and uploads, and also operational data on other KPIs that we needed to track and store in one environment. Here, Copilot and data flows helps analysts build ingestion pipelines using natural language. And instead of manually mapping dozens of columns, you can say, ingest customer records from Salesforce and normalize the country names using ISO standards. Copilot then generates a transformational logic and can even suggest data quality checks. So without spending too much time, you can really get a bang for a buck and ensure that the work that you needed to do manually before now actually gets done in front of your eyes. Once data is ingested, we move into the Synapse data engineering. This is where we clean, transform, and prepare our data at scale. Copilot accelerates this process in two big ways. So it can both generate SQL or PySpark code automatically based on what you want to achieve, and it can explain existing code and identify potential bottlenecks or optimizations. For us, we couldn't just do one big lakehouse, and we're still in development when it comes to this, so we aren't completely done yet. But we needed to adapt towards the logic we had in all the different business units and also to be able to aggregate it globally. As mentioned previously, the team and I work both in Europe, North America, and APAC, so we chose to go with the three different solutions, one for each region. So we set up a European lakehouse where we started to take into account all the different laws and regulations we had, such as GDPR, but also the regional data needed for the regional requests. Inevitably, this led that we had ad hoc data a lot easier. It was a lot quicker to accommodate those requests, but we could also build bigger, larger global requests on this data a lot quicker as well. With all of these different things, even junior developers or business analysts can work faster and more confidently in the platform. For me, this is very critical. This kind of integration with Copilot doesn't just exist in the data engineering workload. It's available across almost every workload in Fabric. And because our team is relatively small, but still expected to deliver high impact outcomes, having an AI assistant like Copilot is essential. It helps flatten learning curves and allows us to gain proficiency in whatever tool or workload we need to operate. This is also why expectations are high. In practice, we need Power BI developers who can also think like data engineers, understand lakehouses, work with data science notebooks, and automate workflows using Data Activator and Power Automate. In short, I need rock stars. And with Copilot, turning many of these tasks into low or even no code experiences, we've seen a dramatic improvement in onboarding and upskilling. And even our junior analysts can now ramp up quickly and start contributing with confidence. So one of the biggest things I've seen as a manager when it comes to the impact of Copilot is actually, the upskilling and onboarding part. We no longer need to sit next to the people and teach them everything about the tooling, but with the help of Copilot, they can learn themselves. Even if you're not an expert in KQL, as an example, now by utilizing KQL databases and event houses and the Copilot integration in there, you can learn, you can understand, you can get a quick grasp of what that actually means. A good example of this is the Custo Detective Agency Challenge that will start now in a couple of days. I believe it's on the 8th of June. The team and I will be participating in this, and KQL is a thing that none of us have actually worked with before. So it's going to be something new and something challenging, but also fun. For us, however, we saw the invitation and we saw the little pop-up. I'm sure all of us have seen in Power BI, inviting you to the challenge. And when you go into there, you can actually still partake in the 2022 tracks. We decided to start doing this to learn KQL, to start learning the real-time intelligence. And the first thing we noticed was that none of us knew the coding language. By utilizing Copilot and by utilizing Gen AI overall, we could get a quite quick grasp of how are we supposed to code? What questions can we ask? How can we even use this workload? And now we've quickly found that KQL is an incredibly powerful tool that we definitely will be using in the future just to get real-time insights and also actively participate in the challenge now in June. Let's continue, however, with the Fabric architecture. So thirdly, in Synapse Data Science, we also have the capability to run experiments, build predictive models, and explore patterns in the data. Nowadays, building a Power BI report is nearly not enough. You need to deliver some additional insights, some predictive or prescriptive analytics, and Synapse Data Science is really the workload you want to utilize for this. So Copilot in notebooks can assist by generating code snippets in Python or R. It can visualize data on requests and also explain complex model outputs in plain English. This enables rapid iteration and makes data science more accessible to business users who may not code every day, but still want to understand the why behind the numbers. Our data then feeds into Power BI, where we build and publish interactive dashboards and reports. This is one of the most transformative areas for Copilot. It can automatically generate DAX measures based on questions like what's the year-over-year growth by revenue in region, suggest visual layouts that best represents the data, provide narrative summaries of dashboards so users understand not just what the numbers are, but what they mean. This helps us scale insights across the business, even to non-technical users. And with Data Activator, which is not the last thing we utilize, but a very important one, we have the availability to monitor key metrics and trigger alerts in real time. It's like having a digital watchdog on your KPIs. And once we have these insights, we want to act on them quickly. There are, of course, a few other tools that we've used along the way, some more than others. So let's start with one of my personal favorites, Power Automate. So with Power Automate, we create flows to trigger actions, send alerts, update CRMs, or generate emails. Copilot helps you build these flows with just a sentence, such as when a sales region drops below a target, notify the regional lead via Teams. I'm a person who's very keen about how I spend my time, and with Power Automate and all its smart triggers and actions, I managed to save quite a lot of it. Automation is key, especially now in these days when new developments come out all of the time. And since I do have quite a small team, but we do intend to pack a punch, time is of the essence. Another interesting one is Power Pages. As mentioned in the introduction, I've always been a bit of a nerd. And one thing that really interested me when I was little was websites. Here at Wolters Kluwer, we are very good at finding time for growth and innovation. For me personally, that meant investigating the Microsoft universe to find all the cool tools like this. So within Power Pages, we can build custom websites and almost apps, like data entry portals or internal tools. Copilots can, in here, assist with UI generation and layouts based on your schema. So even if you've never built a website before, or if you're just interested in the concept, Copilot will be able to assist you with the UX bits, also a bit of coding, and it's a really powerful assistant in building whatever it is you please. However, underneath all of this, Fabric's one lake. So Microsoft's single logical data lake. It enables shared governance, security, and metadata, ensuring everything is consistent and compliant across the board. And because Copilot is embedded at every layer, it doesn't matter whether you're a data engineer, a data scientist, or a business user, you'll get help, suggestions, and acceleration tailored to your context. Microsoft Fabric gives us a connected foundation, and Copilot gives us the intelligence to make that foundation work faster, smarter, and with less friction. It's not just a tech upgrade. For us, it was a rethinking of how we work with data across the entire organization. Another really cool tool that I've spent quite a lot of time utilizing has been Copilot Studios. So as mentioned, I've been a geek my entire life, love everything techie that I don't understand. And when ChatGPT and Copilot and all these other generative AI bots came out, I wanted to understand how I could create my own. Utilizing Copilot Studios, we have set up quite a few different ones internally, working everything from knowledge bases to assisting in well-being scenarios to overall just being our personal assistants. We're still exploring ways we actually can create Copilot bots to investigate our data, generate insights, and provide us with more information than what we have today. But it's a tool I highly recommend for people who just want to get a grasp on what's possible or have a bit too much spare time. But as I conclude my presentation, I want to spotlight some of the newest Power BI features that are transforming how we prepare data for AI and leverage Copilot across reports. So if you're keeping up with everything that's currently dropping out, very good. Otherwise, you'll get a quick summary from me. So some things we're very excited about in sales operations in Wolters Kluwer is now the AI data schema. So it's a new feature that came out in the May release that allows us to define a tailored subset of our semantic models specifically for Copilot. By selecting only the most relevant tables, columns, meshes, and hierarchies, we ensure that Copilot focuses on the data that truly matters. This streamlines its responses, reducing ambiguity, and enhances the quality of the insight. The second thing is verified answers. An issue we had when we started exploring with Copilot was that we didn't really know what to expect. So the team and I got our hands on Copilot in Power BI before it was GA. And with this, we thought we had a beast that we now could unleash upon the organization and the data, and that wasn't really the case. We took data sets from all over the globe, so bits and pieces from APAC, bits and pieces from Europe, bits and pieces from North America, threw it together in a big data model, and basically told Copilot to analyze everything. Of course, this didn't work, and the result we came up with was very, very underwhelming, and we were quite disappointed until we understood that the issue was us, not Copilot. By utilizing verified answers, we can now actually link specific visuals to common user questions. For instance, if users frequently ask what was the last quarter top-selling products, we can tie that query to a pre-validated visual. For us, that would have solved our issue initially, but we still had some groundwork to do. The main things when we started utilizing Copilot was that we didn't have, cleansed data sets. We didn't have proper naming conventions or naming schemas, things that we're still working on today. But the biggest tip I could give anyone that are either quite experienced in Copilot or have just started is set up proper naming schemas, set up proper conventions, because it impacts the model more than you know. And now with verified answers, this ensures that Copilot provides consistent and accurate responses, building further trust and reliability in its outputs. That was also a thing that was key for us. When we delivered poor data and got poor results, the business lost trust. With these verified answers, it would be even easier for us to guide the answers we want Copilot to give to our consumers, so trust is built. Last but especially not least is AI instructions. So AI instructions enable us to embed business context directly into our semantic models. So we can guide Copilot on interpreting specific metrics, understanding seasonal trends, or prioritizing certain data segments. This ensures that Copilot's responses align closely with our organizational knowledge and objectives. Collectively, these three features empower us to make our data models more AI ready, ensuring that Copilot delivers insights that are not only accurate, but also contextually relevant. It's a significant step forward in making AI a seamless part of our data analysis workflow. So Sean, I was a bit quick, but here we are with the presentation. So if we have any questions, now would be the time. Thanks.
Yep. So we have the first question is, hello, Simon. How did you decide on the Fabric capacity to purchase? I ask because my understanding is that you need a PBI capacity separately from Fabric capacity, and you only get Copilot embedded only if you purchase F64 and above. For a smaller organization, the cost may be harder to reach.
Yeah, I have some good news actually when it comes to that. So if you were keeping track of all the news that came out in FabCon Vegas, you no longer need an F64 actually to get this. So Microsoft decided to basically enable Copilot for every single workload. So no matter which one you utilize, you will be able to get all the insights that Copilot can provide. For us, it was a bit of not a gamble, but we needed to have a lot of conversation with Microsoft to both understand how much data and where we're actually planning to bring in, what were we realistically trying to achieve and do. And in general, we first started with only Power BI. So it was before Fabric became a thing, we then kind of understood what we needed. So then it was a P64. And then, sorry, that would translate to F64 these days. But inevitably, we will need to upgrade also just within sales operations to an F128 because of how much our reach is also growing. But good news, you don't need that anymore, considering now Copilot is enabled anywhere. So no matter the size of your organization, you will be able to reap the benefits of the tools.
Perfect. So the next question there is, where do you see Fabric Copilot evolving over the next 6 months, and what are you most excited about?
So I think as I close this presentation with some things that are the most key to us is almost like building trust. Because, when it comes to reporting these days, we don't just build Power BI reports anymore. You almost need to also tell the users why are sales declining within these regions? Or why do we see the marketing efforts aren't really having the impact we thought they were going to have at the top of funnel here? So by utilizing Copilot to both summarize the data and also be able to give non-tech business users parts of the story a lot easier, it gives us more time to actually, be able to develop the more insightful and impactful analytics that can answer even bigger business questions. So things such as verified answers, now prep your data for AI, and a lot of other things now came out in May releases will be very, very good for us. But if I had to pick one, inevitably, I think that the verified answers is far from done. It now just got released, but there's so much more we can do with that. And also some of the features available are also lets you choose like what filters you can let the user to apply, where they should be applied, and that has huge potential to grow. So I think further verifying everything that Copilot actually can give to the consumers of your reports will be very, very important.
Perfect. The next question there is, have you seen measurable improvements in efficiency, speed, or decision making since using Fabric Copilot?
Yes, so both internally actually within our team, but also towards our consumers. So as mentioned previously, one of the things that I was the most surprised by, but it was always how quick people could come up to speed with utilizing different workloads. So to give an example, we had a bit of a reorg a while back and I had to bring in a few new members to the team, etc. And this was kind of when Fabric was still growing. So we really hired for Power BI developers and Power BI specialists and visual analysts. And during this time, Fabric kind of got launched and we got really involved with trying out different workloads before they were GA, trying out Copilot in Power BI before it was GA. And all of a sudden, the scope really changed. We now no longer just needed data scientists or Power BI developers. We needed people who understood everything from automation to, how to properly utilize notebooks, now KQL, Power BI, also how to actually be able to present, some of these numbers to stakeholders, not only soft values, but also hard. So for me internally, it was really good to be able to see the Copilot integration in the workloads, like giving you suggestions on how to set up layered counts, what type of SQL code to utilize. Also, some of the newer features with it actually being able to provide documentation on your code is really, really helpful. As mentioned, we are a smaller team, but we need to follow procedures and structure. Otherwise, it's easy that stuff gets really, really all over the place. So all of that time saving has been really essential for us. Towards our consumers, however, I think getting summaries of the data and having almost like an assistant being able to tell you the most important parts of this data set has been really, really, really good. So before, I think all of us all the Power BI developers listening into this can relate to us creating dashboards, collecting insights, collecting feedback, believing we know exactly what the stakeholders want. Then you spend, a few days, perhaps a few weeks, perhaps even a month building a really good dashboard to then not have them use it at all. By using Copilot now, we could have bigger data sets that we could utilize for more use cases. So narrow these down to the specific requests and also have Copilot assist in the summaries. What are we actually looking at? And now with verified answers, feels like I've said this a trillion times, apologies, but that will go even further. So with specific questions in specific data sets and models, we will now be able to tell the story even further and give the consumers of the dashboards exactly what they're looking for.
Perfect. And the next question there is, how did your team ensure sensitive data was protected while using Fabric Copilot?
So for us, it was the biggest part here. I actually got to almost have to give a shout out to Microsoft. So as mentioned, we're in all parts of the world, meaning that we have to take laws and legislation super serious. As mentioned, some parts of Europe have really harsh GDPR laws where data literally can't leave Europe or the country's own borders. And we had to ensure when we upgraded our solutions to Fabric that we could, of course, accommodate these laws and legislations. So the first thing we really did was just sit down with Microsoft and ensure that we understood what this meant for us. Now, the solution we came up with the help of Microsoft is for the countries like Germany, who have a lot harsher laws that data does not leave their specific region, to ensure that we're always, compliant with whatever rules or laws we need. Apart from that, we set up a lot more internal processes in order to understand exactly how the data flows throughout the systems. And overall, just a good collaboration with Microsoft ensured and gave us the understanding we needed to set up the internal processes and approvals to have a structured and safe approach.
Perfect. I don't know if you answered this question already, but were there any compliance frameworks, example GDPR, that you have to consider during adoption? How did Fabric Copilot align with these?
So it's been interesting as throughout the entire journey. So kind of answered it, but it really depends on where in the world you are. So as mentioned, I still do believe that Europe has some of the harshest rules to work with, where in bits and pieces we are not even allowed to display any type of user data. Everything has to be masked, and we need to ensure that's stored just where it's supposed to be. But nowadays with these tools that Microsoft have, we can really ensure that the data is secured and that it doesn't touch any servers outside of the regionality where it's supposed to lie. So for us, it was really about collaboration, I think, is the key to be able to ensure that we didn't implement any solutions that would breach GDPR or any type of other rule. And Microsoft were more than willing and super helpful in order to give us both the documentation and also assist us in understanding exactly the proper solutions and structures we needed to implement moving forward.
Perfect. Just another question is, hi, this is Daniel Dorch from Simon's Business Intelligence team. Since question more reflection for global BI organizations considering investments in Microsoft Fabric and Copilot. In a global environment where teams span multiple time zones, working as a BI developer often means waiting for input or support from colleagues who are offline. With Copilot acting as your always available virtual colleague, you're never left waiting. Whether you're building models, writing DAX, or troubleshooting queries, Copilot helps you keep moving forward without delay. This kind of continuous momentum transforms the way BI analysts work, dramatically increasing efficiency and reducing friction in everyday tasks.
Yeah, and it's to just develop on that further. Thank you, Daniel, for your insightful comment. So yes, to give you guys some more proper numbers, so like I have a team of 8 that I work with, and as mentioned, spread out all over the world, all through different time zones. And often, you know, even if we're in Wolters Kluwer, even if I'm based in Sweden, as I am, for example, I can work with stakeholders sat in, you know, Shanghai or China or Australia or another part of the globe, or all the different states in the US. And time zones really are my worst enemy. So, you know, reaching out to people when I start my day, then theirs often cause a lot of issues. Also, you know, when it comes to just being an analyst and actually being the boots on the ground and having to get the work done, as you said, Daniel, Copilot can really be a good assistant in ensuring that, you know, am I thinking the way I should? You know, are my queries really making sense? How should I implement this? What really is best practice? Because sometimes you don't really need the business logic. It's often good, but you almost always need someone to, you know, be your thought sparing partner. How should I be able to implement this, and what is the best course of action? So yes, Copilot really is an assistant in all different types of business cases, not just the ones where, you know, you don't really know what to do.
Perfect. So next question there is, why Copilot does not support voice-to-text interaction in Fabric?
It's a good question. So voice to text is, you know, it's a bit advanced, and I'm not the right person to answer this at all. So one thing that came out, however, in the May release was translatic workflows. So a feature the community's been asking for a really long time is, you know, write back, and actually being able to write insights and inputs into Power BI and get that back to the data source and actually into a database, etc. That step, I believe at least, kind of got solved with translated workflows. So now we do have the possibility to both, you know, actually action upon data, send alerts, do a bit of automated work right inside the Power BI model itself, and also to have the write back function. So yes, voice to text would be a very powerful, that hopefully that's something, if the business case is solid enough, to come to the future. But I believe they're well on the way, at least with this new release.
Perfect. The next question there is, how do you deal with people who are not convinced to use Copilot? Personally, I'm happy because I got faster in some tasks like coding and troubleshooting. But what about the others who do not want to use it? Do not want to find a way to work in a hybrid way with Copilot?
It's a really good question, and we had a really long discussion about this when we were actually just deciding if we were going to invest in Power BI or not. So for us, we were really like blessed being able to try a lot of things before it was GA, like Copilot and Microsoft Power BI and a lot of different things. But of course, for us, it was sort of like a long discussion. So since we are a global organization, we have a couple of teams that work cross-divisionally, so that, you know, it doesn't matter if they're in health, they're in tax, they're in anything, that they'll work alongside you. And these were the teams I had the hardest almost part, you know, getting to understand why we needed Copilot, what we needed it for, making them understand the Power BI, what solution we wanted to go with. We kind of took an alternative approach, I guess I'll say. We managed to spin up, a free capacity, just utilizing it and almost actually showing the business the value we could bring in with it. Because bear in mind, it's something Microsoft are very good at saying, but it's true. Like the solutions they actually do provide with Fabric and Copilot, everything now is almost unmatched on the market. And some of the both time you can save by utilizing the Copilot integration into the different systems, but also now like the insight generation it can bring, but the time it also can save from analysts now inside actual Power BI is invaluable. So for us and for me personally, it was more about making the business case and look at the time we can save, but also look at the insights we actually can provide utilizing this. Then I just needed to go through, the boring corporate ladder almost of approvals. But inevitably, when we set up a really solid business case for what we wanted to do and what we wanted to invest in, they had a really hard time saying no when they saw the results.
Perfect. Next one is there any possibility to get help in prompting?
Of course. So I think nowadays, prompting is something that most people either believe they're experts in or believe they're really bad in. I think in general, all of us are kind of in the middle. So prompting, it can go one out of two ways. So inevitably, when we set up Copilot initially, we wanted almost to guide our consumers into how to talk to Copilot. So what I mean by that is what questions should they ask in order to get the insights they wanted. What we did inevitably was collaborate a lot with like internal teams, such as learning and development and enablement, in order to actually teach them, these are the insights you will gain from asking Copilot these types of questions. There's also been a lot of good studies and similar things. I know of several hackathons that existed building out data agents as an example. And with that, they also did a lot of investigation into just prompting what could work the best with the data agent and inevitably Copilot. I think now with verified answers, I do believe it's the 9th time I've said that one word now, but with verified answers, it will be even easier actually assisting with prompting for business stakeholders, because you will always be able to choose like this will guide you to these types of insights, this will guide you to this type of insights. If they ask for 12 months retention trends, you will actually be able to choose which visual that will guide them to. And I believe from a consumer standpoint, that is going to be a lot of help. Actually being able to tell them then, okay, like these are our suggested almost questions you can ask. Either it could be like in a Q&A section inside the model itself or in the initial documentation when you introduce a model to stakeholders. And overall, I think that technology is going to be very, very helpful. If you ask the question as a developer and how to prompt that better, I think a lot of documentation and a lot of assistance actually exists online. So personally, I learned all of this by just sitting down and asking every single silly question I know I could. So I've seen Copilot, especially inside of Power BI, in all its different stages, before GA to current status, and just try it out. Try and see almost if you can break it. I almost say it's the best solution, because when you really know its capabilities and what it can do, you will learn a lot more and also see what it's actually, what it can provide you with.
Perfect. The next question there is, how do you guarantee data quality if you use KQL tables with event house medallion architecture?
So KQL, as mentioned, is something we are fairly new with. We're still investigating it. As mentioned, if you haven't signed up for the Custo Detective Agency Challenge, I highly recommend it, because for us internally, it would be a very good lesson to learn KQL a bit more, but also be able to gamify everything further, which is always a fun way of learning things. But with KQL in general, like the technology Microsoft has set up there is very, very good. So, Power BI and normal lakehouses have limitations almost for how much data we can ingest. Like with Fabric, you have a lot of storage when it comes to, all the different types of workloads. But inevitably, to give an example, in one of these Custo Detective Agency challenges that we tried just to get a better grasp of it, you're working with data models over hundreds of millions of rows. And utilizing now event houses and KQL databases, you actually have the availability both to actually check your data inside the actual KQL database, do visual impairments on it, but also get assistance from Copilot with the actual code itself. So the technology I know is foolproof. And during FabCon, which I've had the pleasure of being a part of a couple of times, several big, both Formula One, but also other sports clubs do present on how they're utilizing real-time intelligence to analyze, several millions data points when it comes to both their players' performance or their cars, if it's an F1. So the technology is quite unmatched, but yes, when it does handle that big amounts of data, of course, it comes with some risks, but Microsoft has overall handled it very, very good.
Perfect. Just next question there. Is your team planning to integrate Copilot with any additional Microsoft tools or data platforms?
So yes, for us, inevitably, as mentioned, Copilot Studios is kind of like the thing I believe we will spend quite a bit of time on. So, Microsoft is doing a great job overall, but of course, everything isn't perfect yet. So for us, not every single business case we want to use Copilot for, they do accommodate. So, we within Wolters Kluwer, we have Copilot enabled in, Outlook, Teams, PowerPoint, and all of these different things. And overall, I haven't introduced those in this presentation, but they're incredible time savers. So being able, to utilize it in PowerPoint to get extra slides or email summaries in Outlook or even meeting notes in Teams is a very efficient time saver. But with Copilot Studios, our goal inevitably will be to almost build our own Copilot entirely for different types of purposes. My dream would, of course, be to start utilizing it to analyze data, but then we kind of go into the data agent swamp. And that's also something that is on our to-do list to investigate, actually setting up these data agents to analyze our data further and almost becoming like a one-stop shop for either sales reps, I think is the most prominent business case for us, to answer any type of question regarding their data or their accounts, or to be able to assist with cross-sell, upsell potentials. So for us, I think a lot of time will be spent on Copilot Studios, but inevitably the next thing in our pipeline will be data agents. I believe a lot of potential lies in agentic AI, and it's going to be interesting seeing also what future developments come out within that area.
Perfect. Next question is, do you opt for lakehouse or for warehouse?
So for us, we had, as mentioned, a lot of data, both unstructured and structured. So we needed to utilize a lakehouse structure in order to actually accommodate our business needs the best. We currently, or our plan also, as you see in the presentation, is a data lakehouse in each business unit's workspace. So we needed to set up one for Europe, one for APAC, one for North America, one globally, both in order to accommodate actually GDPR, but also from an actual business perspective. Data will change both from a geographic standpoint, but also from a business logic. So in Europe, we might need 50 columns, whilst in North America, we'll need 150. So for us, that was the most efficient thing to use to be able to both accommodate big global requests, but also a more ad hoc, quicker analytics. And the thing with the lakehouse also that we thought was really, really good is how fast it actually runs. So you do have a lot of storage that comes in that doesn't necessarily have an impact on your capacity units. So it was a good solution for us. We implemented this over, I don't even know how long ago, and we haven't regretted that we put our time and we put our effort into it yet. So lakehouse for the win, for us at least.
Perfect. So it looks like that's all the questions. So on behalf of the ESPC community, we'd like to extend a big thank you to you again, Simon, for taking time out today to carry this webinar. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks again for all of you joining us today, and I hope you join us again soon. Take care.